Meteorologist Gary Amble. Hey, we're about to go to a news conference with the governor of Kansas, Governor Kelly, speaking about what will be planned rolling blackouts that will encompass several states in the southern power grid. Your Bordner Home Improvement City Cam shows you light snow falling in the city, and it is bitter cold outside. And because of the heavy strain put on this power grid, because of this, literally the millions of people that are on this grid right now, and because of the deep impact of this cold air, there will be rolling blackouts. So here's the latest on that. And again, the governor will update you in just minutes on that. And as soon as we see that she has gone to the podium, we'll go directly to her. Power could be disrupted for literally thousands of people for 20 to 30 minute stretches. So have blankets and jackets ready to go in your home. That doesn't mean you need to run the heat in your home up to above the standards that they're already set to. Try to limit the amount of power that you use as much as possible. Otherwise, there could be a wide catastrophic emergency because of that if more than just rolling blackouts need to be issued. Only heat necessary rooms. So if you have rooms that are not being used, close them off, shut off the vents, allow that heat to go into the central portion of your home where you will be. Conserve as much energy as possible. That means that lights should be shut down. One thing that really uses the power are those electric space heaters. Try to avoid those if possible as well. Keep yourself safe, obviously, but again, conserve electricity as much as you possibly can. Looking out at the city at this hour, light snow is falling. It does appear as though traffic is moving along at a reasonable pace, at least on the area interstates and the heaviest use. Hey, want to show you that Evergy outage map as well as we take this full. Again, there are 1,500 outages at this moment. And again, most of these are planned outages lasting 20 to 30 minutes long. So they'll roll that power back on again. And when they do so, others may be seeing their power shut down. So just keep in mind that this may happen to your house as well. From what was that, Ronnie? So from 30 to 60 minutes, so 20 to 30 is what I had. It's 30 to 60 minutes that you could be potentially without power, and that is huge for areas. Well, there are advisories and warnings out as well. Wind chill warning. This is not a wind chill advisory. It's a wind chill warning that will be lasting from now through noontime on Tuesday, with some of the coldest air that we have had slide into place in decades. Of course, this is coming off of a week's worth of abnormally cold weather, and now it goes down to another level of cold tonight, which will put temperatures down in the range of about 12 to 15 degrees below zero. That's what the thermometer reads. Wind chills down to about 25 or 30 below, and the wind is not going to be blowing that strongly tonight. Winter storm warnings farther to the south. That's where the heavier snows will be found as well. Let's get back to temperatures, though. Here it is, roughly the warmest part of the day. It's only 0 in Liberty and Kearney. It's 2 below 0 in Gladstone, 2 below in the downtown area, 4 degrees below 0 from DeSoto to Olathe and Spring Hill. This is serious cold air with temperatures in many locations that may not make it to 0 today, staying below 0 all day. And then down we go tonight. The axis of the cold air, meaning the coldest of the cold in this latest cold snap, will be arriving overnight tonight, dropping temperatures in our area down into that 14 below 0 range toward daybreak. Cameron at 4 below 0 now. Officially, it's 2 degrees below 0, and Olathe now has seen a 1 degree improvement to 3 below 0. But there's also a breeze blowing through. That breeze is still blowing in at a pretty stout pace, at least at this hour, coming in basically straight out of the north, and that's dropping wind chill temperatures to, get this, 21 below in Kansas City, 21 below in St. Joe, 21 below in Olathe. So it is bitter cold. And also keep in mind, bear this in mind, this is the warmest part of the day. So with the coldest air yet to come, again, there's going to be a huge load on the electrical grid across many states in this southern grid. And because of that, those rolling blackouts have to be enforced. And again, Governor Kelly is coming up in just minutes to fill you in on things that you need to know about that possible outage. Well, here's a look at live power Doppler radar, because there's snow outside already. So if you're thinking about traveling, you might want to think again. The road conditions are deteriorating pretty quickly from what I understand as well. And again, you're reading this on the bottom. We're awaiting Governor Kelly's briefing coming up in just moments. But again, travel on the roadways, not great. Some of the interstates are looking okay at this hour, but I'd avoid interstates as well. The speeds are just a little bit too high for my taste when you have an event like this going on. The treatment's not going to be working with temperatures that are below zero. May see a little bit of a break during the early afternoon and late afternoon, I should say, and early evening hours. That would be this break as well. And that'll be followed by a couple of late evening flurries that should float by. Once that's the case, we should be in pretty good shape for the rest of the overnight when it comes to snow, but certainly not cold air. So a couple of safety measures that you will want to implement in your own home, and that is never leave a space heater unattended, whether it's the propane variety or whether it's the electric variety. If you do have frozen pipes, you're trying to put that space heater in a spot to thaw them back out again, never leave that unattended. House fires can happen in the snap of a finger, and as dry as the air is inside of your house, once you get a fire going, it's just going to erupt like you just put a match to a dried out Christmas tree. And again, you don't want to be forced outside in air like this. Obviously, it's just dangerous outside. Never run a generator indoors. If you do think about operating a generator, make sure that the generator itself is outdoors in the open air where that carbon monoxide can be filtered away from your house. Run that extension cord into your house to run any device that you deem absolutely necessary. So again, generators should never be run indoors. And that also includes inside your garage. If it's an attached garage to your house, a generator in the garage is just as dangerous as being indoors. Again, make sure that's outside of your house in the open air. Also, a lot of folks may be burning firewood at this point, putting it into your fireplace. If your fireplace has not been operated in years, again, you'll want to keep that fire as low as you possibly can and maybe gradually build that up to a moderate level, but never, ever overfill your fireplace. So just because you think you need a little more heat, don't jam a bunch of wood in there. It's best to have 1 or 2 logs going at any one point. Anything more than that can be dangerous. You get a couple of those flames, get up into the flue, and if you've ever been around a flue that catches fire, that's dangerous as well. That can actually take down a house as well. So a couple of safety features that you might want to be considering here at this point. But again, it is dangerous outside with this level of cold air. Temperatures right now have been running anywhere from that 2 to 3 to 4 degrees below zero. Temperatures this morning got down to roughly about 10 degrees below zero. We set a record on Sunday. Just before midnight, we did dip down to record level territory. Today, obviously, we set a record low. And tomorrow, with a forecast of 14 degrees below zero by morning, we will not only set a record low temperature, but we will absolutely obliterate that record low temperature as well. So getting back to, again, getting back to a couple of those watches and warnings that will be issued in the area. Wind chill warnings are in effect at the moment, and you saw yourself that we had a wind chill currently of 21 degrees below zero. And again, I'm going to reiterate a few of these items here while we're waiting on Governor Kelly to take the podium, but I also wanted to reinforce for people who just may be tuning in that it is bitter cold and dangerously cold outside. Winter storm warnings for snow on those counties just south of Butler and also Clinton, Missouri. So southern Missouri really getting clocked with the heavier snows. I guess we could say thankfully in the metro, we're only dealing with 1 inch or 2 of snow. But again, that has caused most of the side streets to be extremely slippery and slick. I've talked to several people who are out driving, and they said the same thing, that it's about half speed at best. So a 30-mile-an-hour zone, 15 miles per hour is more of a safe travel speed, and it's also what most people are traveling at. So again, one other indicator that you might want to avoid that congestion with the roadways as bad as they are. Most of Johnson County, that appears to be the coldest county right now at about 4 degrees below zero. That's Spring Hill, Olathe, DeSoto. It appears to be a little bit warmer up north, but again, at zero, it's absolutely bitter outside, and the way the wind is blowing at 12 to 14 miles per hour, that's sending those wind chills down to 20 below or greater. 2 below zero downtown, that's matching what KCI is located as well and expanding the picture out. There's really nowhere to travel to avoid this. In fact, across the Midwest, we have temperatures down to 13 above zero in Dallas, Texas. I talked to my brother earlier who lives just north of Dallas, and he said that many of the homes, at least in his neighborhood or town, which is Frisco, indicating frozen pipes, and you may be encountering some of that in Kansas City, even with better insulated homes in this location. I'm going to go see if I can fire this up and show you the Midwest and show you how deep this cold air goes, because this is absolutely bitter across most areas. Many locations right now across the Midwest experiencing some of the coldest air that we have dealt with since 1989. I recall that year we hit 23 below zero in Kansas City. Okay, now we can go ahead and go back to that computer graphic again. I wanted to show you the Midwest in its entirety of how cold this air is. It's actually warmer to the north, where Bismarck, North Dakota is at 7. Duluth, Minnesota, typically a frozen spot. It is at 1 below zero. But Kansas City is colder than that right now, and this cold air runs all the way south into the Gulf of Mexico, where temperatures will be well below freezing as far south as New Orleans, Louisiana, and it will cover the entire state of Texas. It's one reason for the rolling blackouts in the south, with all of the states in the south kind of hooked up into the same power grid. And you know that furnaces are going great guns in the south, where homes are not insulated quite as well as at the same time. So with this cold air diving as deep as it is, it puts us in jeopardy in Kansas City because of the extreme load on the power grid covering all of those other states, which is, again, is the reason that Governor Kelly will be talking to us about perhaps plans that they have in place for these rolling blackouts, which can happen. In fact, if we do have that rolling blackout graphic, we can show you how many people are being impacted with that right now. These rollouts will last anywhere from about 30 minutes up to as much as an hour now, from what I understand. There are 1,500 customers right now that you can see without power. Again, this is serving a customer base of about 1.75 million people. And again, 1,500 are without power right now. Active outages at 391. Again, this is just in our area alone, but there will be others. It looks like Governor Kelly now is moving over to the podium, so let's go to her directly with the word from the state of Kansas.
Okay. Everybody's good. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. As many of you know, yesterday I issued a state of disaster emergency declaration to address the challenges created by the wind chill warnings and the severe winter weather conditions Kansas is experiencing. We needed to mobilize the state resources to address the impact of these extreme conditions. In the meantime, I urge all Kansans to do their part to conserve energy so we can ensure a continued supply of natural gas and electricity as we continue weathering these bitterly cold temperatures. Just some simple steps people can take to limit usage. Keep your thermostat between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Bundle up with sweaters and blankets. Reduce the temperature on your water heater to 120 degrees. Seal any leaks around doors and windows, and close your blinds and curtains to keep warm air inside and cold air out. And change or clean your furnace filters. Simple steps like this, they don't seem like much, but they will make a measurable difference in conserving energy. And I can't stress this point enough. We all must cut back on natural gas and electricity usage now to ensure we have enough available to make it through these sub-zero temperatures. How we respond over the next 48 to 72 hours is critical. With me today are Andrew French, Chair of the Kansas Corporation Commission, and General David Weishar. He's the Adjutant General of the Kansas National Guard and Director of the Kansas Division of Emergency Management. They'll provide more details regarding actions taken by our electric companies, the natural gas companies, the Kansas Corporation Commission, and the Kansas Department of Emergency Management to navigate our state through these next few days. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to General Weishar.
Thanks, Governor. Good afternoon, everybody. Walk through a little bit of a timeline that we had, how fast this has transpired. We started yesterday morning with conversations relative to a critical issue concerning availability of natural gas. It was about, I think, 10 o'clock yesterday morning we started with our teleconference. We monitored the situation throughout the day. As the day progressed, things changed a little bit. The situation changed where it was no longer just natural gas, but there was a potential that our energy providers were going to no longer be able to provide the energy requirements for electricity as well. As such, I requested an emergency declaration from the governor about 4:30 p.m. Approximately 4:40 p.m., I had a response back from the governor that yes, she did approve the emergency declaration. So what that does for us, we can activate the Kansas response plan. So some of the steps taken since 4:40 yesterday afternoon, we started with messaging the importance of conserving gas and electricity across the state. We sent surveys out to county emergency managers to say, hey, what do you need? What is the status in your specific and particular county? We began communicating and coordinating with the Red Cross and again the county emergency managers on the need or availability of warming facilities, warming centers. And we also notified the National Guard of a potential for utilization of generators that the National Guard has. I'll talk a little bit about warming centers. It's normal for some communities to have warming centers when there's extreme cold going on. So if you're one of those communities that has warming centers available, check with your local resources to see what the operating hours are and see if they're available. A reminder of yet another challenge with extreme temperatures is we have to keep COVID in mind when we're talking about warming centers. So if you utilize a warming center, please wear your mask, work on social distancing, wash your hands, and just be mindful of COVID is still out there. We're communicating with Kansas Department of Health and Environment, as well as local health departments, on how we can mitigate COVID factors once we start utilizing warming centers. We're preparing to support communities as well as counties in their need for warming centers or anything else that they need. Currently, we have 3 county declarations in place, but no resources have been officially requested from the State Emergency Operations Center. The counties are Labette County. They've got a water main break in Labette County and Parsons. They've got that well under control, and they're managing that resource, that response action at the county and city level. Cowley County is preparatory in nature, and Comanche County due to several power outages. I think Chairman French will talk a little bit about the power outages. I believe Comanche County was due to a rolling power outage, so I'm not sure they've got a significant issue, but as soon as I get back to the State Emergency Operations Center, I'll find out. We have multiple calls coming in the State Emergency Operations Center, and a lot of that is due to the rolling power outages. So again, no specific needs from counties right now, but we are available and we're ready to assist when they need it. The Kansas Corporation Commission is the emergency services function lead for energy and for this particular response. They have a member working in the State Emergency Operations Center at this time, and they are providing us in the State Emergency Operations Center with the latest information. With that, I will now turn it over to the chairman of the Kansas Corporation Commission, Chairman French.
Thank you, and thank you, Governor Kelly, for giving us the opportunity to bring this important message here today. I'll give just a little background on the series of events that have sort of led us here. As has been mentioned, we started out monitoring this situation as a series of unprecedented natural gas wholesale pricing spikes were flowing through the market. And so what we did was to look and see how that was going to impact Kansas customers. As we've discussed this with our gas utilities, they don't think that this is going to be a supply issue, and that there should be enough gas for everyone. But those price spikes are very high, as much as 100, 150, 200 times the normal wholesale price of gas. And so that is obviously a concern. But the situation has then sort of developed into an electric issue, and that is a supply issue. Given the weather recent, which is extremely out of the ordinary, we have seen unprecedented demand for electricity, especially at this time of year. Add to that the fact that the weather has impacted our generation resources, not just in Kansas, but throughout our whole region, in all the states surrounding Kansas. We're experiencing issues with wind turbines that are not able to produce as much power as normal due to conditions like freezing fog. Some of our coal plants are not able to produce as much power as normal because of freezing coal stacks. And then on top of that, you have the natural gas plants, which some are experiencing malfunctions due to the weather, and they are also competing with the gas utilities for adequate but scarce supplies of natural gas at very high prices. And so you have this confluence of events which is limiting the availability of power throughout our region at a time where all of our customers have extreme demand for that power. And so, one thing I do want to emphasize, as I said, this is not a Kansas issue. You've probably heard stories about Texas, who's experienced blackouts, I think as far as yesterday. But this will be impacting every utility in every state in this region. So Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, and further north. The thing that I think is really important to emphasize is that customers can impact this. I mean, we are right on the edge of whether curtailments of power are needed or not. And so to the extent folks can conserve safely, we would certainly encourage them to try to cut back on that usage of natural gas and electricity over the next 48 to 72 hours, which will be the critical period. Just a little more context on the rolling blackouts. We did have our first series of rolling blackouts earlier this afternoon. It lasted for about an hour, hour and a half. Those were planned and coordinated through the Southwest Power Pool and across all of our utilities across the state. And so it was a coordinated event by geographic area. Those have now ended. We're hopeful that we'll have a period with adequate supply, but there is still a possibility as we move forward in the coming hours, into the evening hours where demand is high, and tomorrow morning where demand will be very high. Folks are going to be waking up to very cold temperatures and having demand for energy. There is a chance that there could be more rolling blackouts at that time. But as I said, these would be coordinated. The goal is for them to be 30 minutes to an hour at a time in any geographic area, and then power would come back on. So that's always the goal, is for that to be coordinated and planned. So that is where we are right now, and I will toss it back to the governor for any questions.
Okay, have you guys got any questions?
What should we tell customers right now? Plan on 10 times what your normal bill would be, and then let's get it so that sticker shock isn't as bad as what it probably will be for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, right this minute, they're not going to be experiencing that. That takes time to accumulate that. But what they can do to mitigate the issue is conserve energy. Not only will it ensure the supply so that we can continue providing utilities to our various households and businesses, but it also, in the long run, will keep their bills down.
With
somewhat.
that higher rate, though, automatically the bills are going to be up because we're having to pay more, right? And so.
Yeah, I am not a utility bill expert. Is there something you can?
I'd be happy to.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I do want to emphasize, it's a little bit legitimate issue. Our focus right now is on making sure customers continue to receive service. But as far as what customers can do, yes, you're right. These higher natural gas prices will flow through gas bills and electric bills. But I would emphasize that our utilities do have strategies to mitigate that. They have hedging practices that will help moderate the impact of sort of the spot prices. So that's one aspect. And then for the utilities that we regulate, we're going to be looking at practices in our rate-making function of how we could smooth out those costs over time. So you're right, folks do need to conserve. It will save them money in the long run, but we also have some tools at our disposal that we'll look to use.
Just want to ask, is there any way we can possibly strengthen the grid so that this doesn't happen again? What were kind of the underlying issues for this to happen?
So what I talked about before, sort of the confluence of events with generation resources, that's part of what's driving this. But you're absolutely right. It's not our focus right now, but I have no doubt there will be much time for investigation, litigation in the future to figure out what went wrong here and how we can strengthen our supply of energy and our grid for the future.
Can you explain how the temporary shutdowns actually work? Is it just for that benefiting those 30 to 60 minutes, or does it help in the hours afterwards? And are you recommending that more happen?
So it does help overall. I mean, for the whole period at which we're experiencing a deficit, they only shut down specific geographic regions for 30 minutes at a time, but then they might go on to another region for as long as they need to maintain balance throughout the region. So we only needed it for about an hour and a half today, and that's how long it happened. We hope that is the end of it, but that is how it occurs.
It's not like if you would have done it for 3 hours, it would help tomorrow.
No, it's an instantaneous process.
Obviously, we had a merger not too long ago, they're now called Evergy. Did they bite off more than they could handle? I don't recall there ever being rolling blackouts for Westar. So is there something that maybe that needs to be looked at?
That's not something we see a relationship to, but certainly we're going to investigate this pretty fully in the coming months.
I have a question, maybe it's more for the governor, but I was wondering, would there be any potential effects on these, from these rolling blackouts on kind of the vaccine storage? Because I know some vaccines need a certain temperature to be kept at. So are you guys, could it be like targeted where it's not affecting the vaccine storage locations?
I expect that every place that we are storing vaccines, whether it's in hospitals, other facilities, that they've got backup generators generally, and that should be able to take care of that problem.
Last question?
How does it get decided of who's getting blacked out? Is there some people that can handle it more than others?
So I do have my technical staff here with me today, and I may ask them to elaborate on this if they have some elaboration. But our power is coordinated through the Southwest Power Pool. They coordinate the power throughout the region. They have a process, rules and regulations of how they ask folks to curtail the power. That typically goes out, as I said, to all the utilities throughout the region. So this, like I said, this is not an Evergy issue, a Sunflower Electric issue. This is an issue for all the utilities throughout all the states in that Southwest Power Pool, and that's coordinated through them.
Governor, did you tell them to turn the lights off out there? I saw that. I was wondering if that's your way of helping out.
It is my way of helping out. You know, I dimmed the lights in the governor's office this morning, and then actually my scheduler was out in the hallway and noticed some meeting room lights on with nobody in there. So yeah, we went around turning off lights.
Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to Kansas Governor Laura Kelly and other Kansas state officials speak about the extreme winter weather that we are experiencing, not just here in Kansas and Missouri, but as you know, there are issues in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and all around us, Iowa, Nebraska. So this is a more than even a regional issue. But what the governor has done, declared emergency, that enacts then the state to be able to get involved when it comes to these rolling blackouts you heard about. We also heard about from state officials about some gas spikes and natural gas prices. He did try to reassure everyone that there should be enough natural gas, but they're asking everyone to cut back a little bit. All right, we want to get straight out to KCTV5's Carolina Cruz, who's live at KCPD headquarters with how the city and how police are handling these blackouts. Carolina?
Yeah, so we checked in with the police department just to make sure and see how these rolling blackouts will impact them. They said that so far they are not receiving any higher call volumes for any accidents. We know that traffic lights could definitely be an issue for drivers that are out on the roads. So they say that is a good sign so far. They also told me that this will not be impacting their phone lines or their emergency lines. So those will continue to operate if people need to contact 911. Something they do want to remind drivers, though, is if they do see a power light, a stoplight that is out, remember, it's just treat it as a four-way stop when you are driving out on the roads. And I do kind of want to show you, it is extremely cold. I mean, we've been talking about this all day and leading up to today, last week. There are people that are camped out here outside of City Hall here in Kansas City. And we actually just had 2 cars that came by, and they are dropping off some of the blankets to the people that are just camping out in these tents out here. And I mean, I can imagine that it is just extremely cold. We've only been out here for a couple of minutes and we can feel that cold. The University of Kansas Health spokesperson actually said that they have treated over the weekend more than a handful of frostbite cases. So they say that drivers need to make sure that they pack maybe a blanket or something if your car goes out, because some of these folks, it's not only people that had to be out in the elements and didn't have anywhere else to go, but it was also people that maybe had car troubles and didn't expect to have to walk to be able to get help, and those ended up being some of the patients that they are treating in the hospital. And they do expect to see a spike in frostbite cases today and in the coming days. So that's something to keep in mind. If you do see somebody that is outside, make sure that you contact the Kansas City Police Department. Has been saying that all weekend. If you see somebody outside that you are concerned about, they have a non-emergency line that you can call, and that number is actually available on our website. We'll send it back to you.
Yeah, it is just a terrible, awful day to have to be outside. Carolina, we appreciate your reporting. Get inside and warm up. Thank you, Carolina. We appreciate it. And as we just heard, some Evergy customers could be losing power for a short time today in those rolling blackouts. Let's take a look at Evergy's actual outage map right now. The number of customers who are in the dark right now, just 20 minutes ago was around 1,500, but that has now dropped to about 500 customers who were without power. But as you heard, there will be more of these possible. Please do not call to report an outage unless it lasts longer than 30 minutes. So keep that in mind as well. The Southwest Power Pool, which supplies electricity to Evergy and 14 states, including Missouri and Kansas, released this statement. It says, in our history as a grid operator, this is an unprecedented event and marks the first time that SPP has ever had to call for controlled interruptions of service. It's a last resort that we understand puts a burden on our member utilities and the customers they serve, but it is a step that we're consciously taking to prevent circumstances from getting worse. And our KCTV5's Leslie Aguilar joins us live with details. She is in Evergy headquarters right now. Leslie, what's the latest? That's kind of a dire message we heard from SPP.
Indeed, these are unprecedented times here at Evergy. They've been working around the clock to manage this ever-changing situation. As you said, there are unprecedented power interruptions happening, but luckily right now that has ceased for the moment. I am here with Katie McDonald, a spokesperson with Evergy, here to explain what's been going on. And Katie, first of all, can you give us an explanation of why we had to do those power interruptions and what is going on right now?
Sure, absolutely. So the reason why we had to do some temporary power interruptions earlier this afternoon is because our region is facing unprecedented levels of demand on our system, which means that we've had power supply concerns. At Evergy, we have enough power to meet our customer needs. However, when you get into a situation like this, the Regional Power Authority, which in our case is called the Southwest Power Pool, has to ensure that there's enough power for all of the utilities. And so in this case, earlier today, the Southwest Power Pool asked utilities in our region to begin brief power interruptions for our customers in order to hopefully reduce the supply concerns, get back to normal, and avoid widespread blackouts that would occur if we can't get the situation under control.
Can you explain how you guys make that decision of which areas get those interruptions? And is it you guys who make that decision?
Sure, yeah, we do. So at Evergy, what happens is the Southwest Power Pool asks us to reduce a certain amount of power for certain amounts of time. And so what we do is, it's very complex. We try to avoid circuits that have critical customers like hospitals, like nursing homes. We can't always do that, but we try to do that. We also, in these times, are trying to avoid locations that have the COVID vaccine and locations where vaccinations are taking place. And so we start there, and we try to look across our entire system to make sure that we have these limited power interruptions that are kind of widespread in nature. So today we had 60,000 customers who were impacted, all for roughly 30 minutes, which in our terms is good, because we were looking at potentially longer power outages if we couldn't get the electricity demand down.
And for those people who could be losing power, which, I mean, we don't know in the coming days if you guys might have to do this again or for how long, can you speak to the communications challenges? It's not like you can call everybody in those areas and give them a warning that heads up, your power specifically is about to go out for however long.
Absolutely. So typically when we're going to do construction work, for example, that's a planned outage, and we give customers advance notice. This situation is very touch and go, and when we are asked to begin reducing power, we have to do that immediately. And so we're not able, unfortunately, the way the system works, utilities can't give customers advance notice in this situation. And so that's one of the reasons why we try to make it as brief of an interruption as possible for our customers, because we can't give them advance notice.
Okay, so some viewers obviously have been upset about the power outages. Can you explain, this was forecasted. Obviously, we knew that it was going to be bitter cold, and you guys did do some preparations for this, buying extra power and whatnot. Can you explain how that works and why still it's hard to have enough power for the entire grid?
Yeah, so the reason we're here today is because as a region, this is unprecedented as far as the number of days of extreme cold and for as widespread as the cold is. And so it's a much bigger than a Kansas and a Missouri problem. It's an issue across our entire region. And so to your point, while we do have enough energy for our customers, in order to keep the grid in balance from a regional perspective, they've asked us to be part of the reductions to make sure that the overall system doesn't create lasting blackouts that would be a much worse situation for our customers. But we did. We bought extra power. We've had employees working 24/7 shifts, doing everything we could to reduce our demand for electricity. But we're still at this point today where luckily we've gone from the worst level of emergency in our region. We went back a level. So now we're back at a level 2, which is at a place where in a level 2, we're asking our customers to continue to conserve electricity, to take the steps that they can to reduce the strain on the system. And that's likely to last through tomorrow. But at any time, we could go back to a level 3 if as a region, the power supply becomes more limited again. And so it's really a touch and go situation. We would encourage customers also to make sure they're prepared for losing power for 30 to 60 minutes. Make sure you're charging your cell phone, make sure you're charging any of your electronics, make sure that you are prepared with a storm kit should you lose power for a brief time.
Yes. And for school, I know a lot of school districts are going to be making the decision right now whether to be in person or to be virtual. I know that you guys have been in contact with the school district, so what are you telling them? What is better from a power standpoint, to have the entire building in person or all of those different homes, virtual, sucking up electricity?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've been, as you said, we've been working with school districts directly, and what we've said is we're in a critical situation here for about through the end of tomorrow. And so if as long as school districts understand that from a school perspective, we may be in a position where we're doing limited power interruptions for 30 to 60 minutes, and if the schools are okay with that risk, then they can continue operating. But the other option would be to be virtual and to not do that. From a power perspective, we're not giving specific instruction to the schools.
Okay, thank you. Another thing that I found interesting that you told me earlier, so a lot of people, when we hear power grid, we might not know exactly what that grid is. So the grid is, the power source for the entire region. There's different types of ways for us to get power. So coal, wind energy. Explain some of the ways right now during this extreme cold that we can't get those sources of energy?
Yeah, so one of the things that we benefit here in the Midwest is that unlike some parts of the country, we have a real balance from an energy generation perspective. We create power through wind, through coal, through natural gas, nuclear, solar. And so what that does is when there are certain types of generation that are not performing well in extreme conditions, we can lean on our other generation sources as well as buy additional power. So really the only type of energy source that is not impacted so far by this event is nuclear. But we've had issues with our renewable generation. We've had issues getting natural gas supply in because of capacity concerns, as well as coal issues with freezing supply. And so what we've had to do is really work as a generation portfolio and make sure that we have enough generation to meet the needs of customers by making sure we bring in additional capacity when we knew that this weather would be where we are today.
Okay, so last question. What can customers do to conserve energy? I know that you guys have said maybe turning the thermostat down a couple degrees, making sure that we're not doing laundry or washing dishes, especially during those peak hours. Explain that. How can people help and conserve energy?
Absolutely. So first of all, I would say because we're out of the extreme level 3, that is partially a testament to our customers doing everything that they can to conserve electricity. That is great news. So continuing to unplug appliances when they're not in use, not running the washer, dryer, dishwasher, major appliances until later at night after 10 o'clock p.m. when we're past our energy peak usage period, as well as, to your point, turning down the thermostat several degrees so you could get between that kind of 65 and 68 degree perspective.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to add for anything for our customers, all of our viewers to know as we continue in this extreme cold?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would say is that what would be really important, customers may be wondering, okay, so we're not interrupting power now, but how do we know if that's going to change? The best way to get updates is through our Facebook page. We're going to be continuing to provide more of the up-to-the-minute updates on that page so folks will know if we move back into a position where we're interrupting customers again.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's it from Katie McDonald. I'm going to pass it to you guys back in the studio, Brad.
Yeah, great interview. A lot of information there. We appreciate that, Leslie. Just to go over what she said, about 60,000 Evergy customers have had power interrupted for about 30 minutes at some point today. She said that people should be prepared for the possibility that they might lose power from anywhere from up to 30 minutes to 60 minutes. So it's a good idea to keep your cell phones charged and things of that nature. Check on your neighbor for certain. Okay, before we go, we want to get another check with meteorologist Gary Amble on this awful weather, Gary.
Yeah, this is absolutely terrible. With temperatures that are running now more than 40 degrees below normal, this again is unprecedented. A week ago, we were talking about how deep and long this cold snap would be. We haven't even quite reached the coldest point yet. That comes in tonight. Of course, I've got a complete update on your forecast coming up today at 4 o'clock, complete with when this cold snap will end and how much colder it will get overnight, obviously. But a wind chill warning is presently in effect for all of our viewing area, and that will be in effect until noontime Tuesday. And don't expect much of an improvement at that point. Let's check out our mobile storm tracker right now, and we can actually catch some of the roadways. Now, a little bit of light snow that's been falling throughout the day today. It didn't add but maybe an inch onto the ground, but that inch of snow has completely snowpacked our roads again. And from what I understand, travel is very, very treacherous in most of those areas. Mobile storm tracker is built with four-wheel drive, with amazing tires. This thing is meant to go anywhere, and you can see that it's moving along at a pretty good pace, but most other automobiles on the roadways really struggling to deal with the snowy and icy conditions outside. And again, the treatment on the roads not able to work when the temperature is 2 degrees below zero. The wind is also blowing in at a blustery pace, 14-mile-an-hour winds officially at KCI now, and that's dropped the wind chill temperature to 21 degrees below zero. Again, even colder air is coming tonight. This cold snap will last all the way through the end of this work week, but there is a break and a silver lining in this. And also, I'll tell you when we can finally reach that light at the end of the tunnel with temperatures warming to above freezing. Brad, I have so much to talk about, and I'm going to cover it in great detail coming up on KCTV5 News at 4 o'clock today.
Yeah, brutal cold temperatures. Gary, we'll see you then. Thank you. And we want to make sure that you join us tomorrow for Project Warmth. KCTV5 is raising money for our friends and neighbors who are simply struggling to pay their heating bills right now. So your donations will absolutely make a difference. It's a special edition of Project Warmth that gets started tomorrow morning at 4:30, and then it runs through our 10 o'clock news tomorrow night. So we hope you will join us and contribute as much as you can tomorrow. And we will have the latest on this Arctic blast coming up on KCTV5 News at 4. We'll see you then. Stay warm.